When people think about bats, they usually picture caves, darkness, and old horror stories. But that image hides the real story. Bats are mammals, and they belong to the order Chiroptera. That means they are closer, in broad biological terms, to other mammals than to birds, even though they fly through the sky. What makes bats extraordinary is that they are the only mammals capable of true, sustained powered flight. Not gliding like flying squirrels, and not short leaps with skin flaps, but active flight over meaningful distances with precise control. This single evolutionary achievement gave bats access to nighttime airspace and opened ecological opportunities that few mammals could reach. Over time, that advantage helped them spread almost worldwide and diversify into a huge range of species. So if we start with one idea, it is this: bats are not fringe creatures of folklore. They are a major branch of mammal evolution that solved a problem no other mammal lineage solved. Understanding bats means understanding how anatomy, behavior, and environment interact to produce one of nature's most successful adaptive stories. The reason bats can fly so effectively begins with their wings. A bat wing is not built like a bird wing covered in feathers. Instead, it is a transformed mammalian hand. The fingers are elongated dramatically, and a thin membrane, called the pathogen, stretches between those digits and the body. This structure creates a flexible flight surface that can change shape constantly in motion. That flexibility gives bats a remarkable level of maneuverability. They can make tight turns, rapidly adjust speed, and navigate through cluttered spaces where rigid wing flyers would struggle. In practical terms, bats are aerial specialists not because they are strong in a brute force way, but because their wing architecture allows fine control. The wing membrane is also biologically active tissue, with blood vessels and nerves, so the wing is not just passive cloth in the wind. It is a responsive surface integrated into the animal's whole movement system. This is important because it shows bat flight is not a copied version of bird flight. It is a separate engineering solution produced by mammal evolution, and it is one of the key reasons bats could radiate into so many ecological niches across the planet. Bat diversity is massive, and scale helps make that clear. Bats are the second largest order of mammals after rodents, representing about 20% of all classified mammal species, with at least 1,500 known species. That is not a minor side branch. It is one of the dominant mammalian radiations on Earth. Their size range is equally dramatic. At the smallest end is Kitty's hog-nosed bat, one of the tiniest living mammals, with a body length of roughly 29 to 33 millimeters and a mass around 2 grams. At the largest end are flying foxes, including giant forms that can reach around 1.5 kilograms and wingspans near 1.6 meters. This spread in body size reflects deep ecological diversification, not random variation. Different sizes support different feeding strategies, habitat use, and flight styles. Older classifications divided bats into megabats and microbats, but newer evidence supports the Uintarochiroptera and Yangochiroptera framework, showing evolutionary relationships are more complex than simple size-based categories suggested. The broader point is that bats did not become successful by staying uniform. They became successful by evolving repeatedly into different forms, each tuned to specific environmental opportunities. Diet is one of the clearest windows into what bats do for ecosystems. Many species are insectivores, feeding heavily on night-flying insects. This matters because insect pressure can shape crop outcomes, forest health, and disease ecology. Bat predation does not eliminate insects, but it contributes continuous suppression that can reduce pest intensity over time. Other bats are frugivores, feeding on fruit, while others are nectarivores, visiting flowers for nectar. A small number have specialized diets, including blood-feeding vampire bats. The key insight is that bats are not one feeding type with one ecological function. They are multiple functional groups performing different jobs in parallel. Insect-eating bats help regulate insect populations. Fruit-eating bats help move seeds across landscapes. Nectar-feeding bats support pollination in plant communities that open or reward at night. This dietary diversity is a major reason bat conservation cannot be reduced to a single argument. Their value is layered. If insectivorous species decline, pest dynamics may shift. If frugivores and nectarivores decline, plant reproduction and regeneration pathways can weaken. Understanding bats through diet helps us see them as active participants in ecological processes, not background wildlife. Most bats are nocturnal, and many roost in caves, trees, crevices, or sheltered structures during the day. Nocturnality is not just a quirky lifestyle detail. It is an adaptive strategy that changes competition, predation risk, and food timing. At night, bats can exploit resources with less overlap from many day-active birds. Roosting behavior is equally strategic. A suitable roost offers thermal stability, protection from weather, and relative safety from disturbance. For social species, roosts also support colony life, where individuals cluster and maintain group structure. Caves are iconic because they provide stable microclimates and shelter, but bats are not only cave animals. Many species depend on forest roosts or other refuges, which means habitat quality outside caves still matters immensely. Roost loss can create cascading effects, reduced reproductive success, lower juvenile survival, and colony fragmentation. So when we see bats hanging quietly during daylight, we are seeing a carefully optimized energy and survival system. Their daily cycle is split between low-disturbance recovery and high-efficiency nocturnal foraging, and that rhythm has helped bats persist across a wide range of climates and landscapes. Bats are distributed across almost all regions of the world, and that global reach reflects extraordinary ecological flexibility. Flight allows them to connect fragmented habitats, move between feeding zones, and track seasonal resource patterns in ways many small mammals cannot. But global distribution should not be confused with invulnerability. Local populations still depend on specific conditions, dependable roosts, safe movement corridors, and access to appropriate food resources. In tropical systems, fruit and nectar availability can shape bat movement patterns. In temperate systems, seasonal insect abundance and suitable overwintering conditions can be critical. Because bats often move across broader spatial networks than people realize, conservation cannot focus on one protected point alone. A secure cave can fail as a conservation strategy if surrounding foraging habitats are degraded or disconnected. This is why bats are often described as ecological connectors. They link places, and through those movements they link processes, such as seed flow between habitat patches or insect predation over agricultural mosaics. Their near-global presence tells us bats are highly adaptable, but it also reminds us that their survival depends on landscape-level planning, not isolated site-level thinking. The benefits bats provide to humans are substantial, even when they are not always visible in daily life. Insect consumption by bat populations can reduce pressure from pest species, which may lower reliance on chemical controls in some contexts and support more balanced pest management systems. Frugivorous and nectarivorous bats contribute to plant reproduction and regeneration through seed dispersal and pollination, especially in ecosystems where nighttime ecological interactions are important. These services are easy to underestimate because they are distributed and cumulative rather than dramatic in a single moment. Beyond these ecological functions, humans have also used bat guano as fertilizer, and in some places large bat colonies support tourism activity. In certain regions, bats are also consumed as food, showing that human-bat relationships vary widely by geography and culture. The practical lesson is that bats are woven into both ecological and economic systems. If bat populations are destabilized, the costs can appear indirectly through increased pest pressure, weaker regeneration in plant communities, or loss of ecosystem resilience. Their value is not based on sentiment. It is based on repeated, measurable roles that sustain functions humans rely on, often without noticing the source. Any serious discussion of bats must also address health risk clearly and calmly. Bats can act as natural reservoirs for multiple pathogens, including rabies. Their social behavior, mobility, and relatively long lifespan for small mammals can support pathogen persistence within bat populations. But this fact is often misunderstood in public conversation. Reservoir status does not mean bats are inherently malicious or that panic responses are useful. Human risk rises mainly when contact conditions become unsafe, such as direct handling, roost disturbance, wildlife trade interfaces, or unprotected exposure in high-risk settings. Effective response is targeted, not emotional, reduce direct contact, strengthen surveillance, educate communities, and rely on trained wildlife and health professionals for interventions. Fear-driven approaches, especially indiscriminate culling, can fail to reduce risk and may damage ecosystems in the process. A better framework combines conservation with biosecurity. Protect bat populations and habitats for ecological stability, while minimizing high-risk interactions through practical public health measures. This dual strategy is more complex than simple fear narratives, but it is also more evidence-based and more effective for long-term human and environmental outcomes. Culture shapes how people respond to bats as much as biology does. In many Western traditions, bats are linked to darkness, malevolence, witchcraft, and vampires. In other societies, bats may symbolize good fortune, protection, rebirth, or long life. These symbolic meanings matter because they influence public tolerance, policy support, and the emotional framing of conservation decisions. If bats are seen only as threats, communities may support harmful actions that ignore ecological consequences. If bats are idealized without acknowledging disease management needs, people may ignore sensible safety practices. The challenge is integration, not replacement. Keep cultural narratives visible while anchoring decisions in evidence. Communication that works usually does three things at once. It acknowledges why bats trigger strong reactions, it explains their ecological functions in concrete terms, and it clarifies behavioral boundaries that reduce health risk. This approach helps move public conversation from myth versus science conflict to informed coexistence. Bats then become less of a symbolic battlefield and more of a practical conservation and health topic, where communities can make better decisions without denying either cultural memory or biological reality. So what does responsible coexistence with bats look like in practice? It starts with protecting critical roosts, especially maternity and seasonal sites where disturbance can have outsized effects on reproduction and colony stability. It also requires preserving foraging habitats and movement pathways, because roost protection alone is insufficient if feeding landscapes collapse. Timing matters too. Reducing disturbance during sensitive periods can significantly improve outcomes. On the health side, public guidance should be straightforward: avoid direct contact, report unusual bat behavior through proper channels, and let trained professionals handle high-risk situations. Monitoring programs are essential, because bat declines can be gradual and missed until ecosystem effects become obvious. The bigger lesson is that bat management works best when it is preventive and systems-based. Bats are deeply integrated into insect dynamics, plant reproduction, and habitat connectivity. If those links weaken, the consequences can propagate across agriculture and biodiversity. In the end, bats are not just interesting nighttime mammals. They are a test of whether humans can manage complexity, protecting ecological function while reducing risk, replacing reflexive fear with informed strategy, and treating coexistence as a deliberate design choice rather than an accident. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.